Hey, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Pull Up Trade podcast that is co hosted by, of course, myself, Samson Folk, and on the other side, co hosted by the Trey that pulls up, Trevon Heath. We're here to talk draft. There's no rigmarole. We're getting into it. I have to cover an Eastern Conference Finals game immediately after this. We found the time to make it work, Trey. How you doing? How you feeling about? I believe your Twitter name is 100% chance of Hall of Famer at 9. How do you feel?
It's written, man. Things always happen in threes, and we've gotten it 2 times. Even like this could even be a fourth if you're really considering the Jakob trade. But I'm confident that through these pods we're gonna dig, and by the end of June, I'm going to myself or you identify the next Hall of Famer, the next franchise leader for this team.
You're the one who's doing it. You've got your eyes on. Okay, I do like that. I do like that. I will say for anybody, and this happens with every a prospect every once in a while. Listen, we do a lot of work to see these prospects. We do our best, but of course, this is Joe and Schmo sitting on the couch. We watch maybe a bit more than the viewer, of course, because it's our job. But again, our word is not the last one, and perhaps not even our own. These guys are young
Yep.
men who will develop into whatever else. So we may have negative thoughts on some players, but it's just our opinion. Also, remember to comment, like, and subscribe. I did it early. I made it
Wow.
happen. Yeah. And so that really helps the podcast. We hit 13,000 subscribers. We're growing. It's all great. Trey, on the docket for today is Noa Essengue, Rasheer Fleming, and Cedric Coward. I want you to rank those three in terms of how much you like each prospect, and then we will get into Noah.
Okay. This might surprise you, but I like Coward the best. Coward, Fleming, and then Noah Essengue.
Wow. Coward
Yeah,
at
not
is wait, just quickly, does that because we'll get into it, but does that speak to disliking Fleming and Asenge, or does that speak to loving Coward? Are you
I
a
think
coward? Are you a
I'm
member of the
I'm
cowards?
I'm a coward. I think it means both. Honestly, I know
Mm,
like the latter two are two of the most people talked about people in our comments and who people want to watch, which we digged in. But
mhm.
our good old friend Josh Scoudham, he's always ahead of the curve. I looked at my DMs months ago. He asked me, "Have I watched this guy?" And obviously not. I haven't watched what Big Sky basketball.
Yeah.
But
Eastern Washington. I watched some of it today, by the way.
yeah,
That Big Sky Hoops.
man, true love of the game. But
Yeah.
he's ahead of a curve. He's the man that brought us Jonathan Mobile, and he might have done it again.
Josh, obviously, every time we talk about a prospect, Josh is usually 2 or 3 years ahead. A lot of it because Josh, in his time traveling as a scout, was just watching these guys. Like Josh will be like, "Yeah, I saw that
Mhm.
guy when he was 17." Like Carter Bryant, he was like, "Yeah, I saw him when he was 16." It's just like, well, damn, it's just
Mhm.
way more info than the rest of us. But I, similar to you, do not have. I know Esenge is probably, if you combine mock drafts, probably the top one, but
Yeah.
I would probably go, and this will be getting into pessimism on Asenge from the both of us. I would go Fleming, Coward, Asenge.
Mm.
So let's take that as an opportunity to jump into Asenge, who could, of course, prove us wrong and our doubts and could develop into, whatever people want him to be. Noah Asenge, Ratio Farm, he's 18 years old. He might be the youngest player in the draft. He is 6'9", 9'3" standing reach with a 6'11" wingspan. If that doesn't make sense to you, because 9'3" standing reach is the legs are really, really long. His 35.5 max vert. He's around 200 pounds. He's a pretty thin frame. 12.4 points per game, 5.3 rebounds, 1 assist, 1.4 steals per game, zero point 0.6 blocks, 56, 29, 73 shooting splits. He is a guy who, I think the best thing you can say about Noah is that he produces kind of whenever he's on the floor.
Yeah.
And whether that's the production you want to see or whether he's showcasing the skills or abilities that you think will show up at an NBA level, he's putting up numbers. He finds his
Mhm.
way to numbers. Noah Senge, take it. You've got the wheel right now. How do you feel?
I'm not Masai Ujiri, but with Noah Essengue, I think, especially like the old regime or like the way that maybe the Raptors kind of looked at it, I can understand like why he would be a consideration at number 9. Very long, plays well in transition, and has requisite tools that lead you to think that he might be impactful defensively.
We both wore almost the same sweater, by the way.
I've been looking at our sweaters the whole time. I've been looking. I was like, damn, look at us.
Okay, go on.
All right. But with Insengate, I think a lot of it is you're projecting some of these flashes will become more consistent. I think just to start off on some of the positive stuff, he finds a really good way to be productive without having sets drawn for him and also being able to be in the right place in the right time, whether that's utilizing his length to get into passing lanes, break up things from there, then get in transition and score, being able to fill as a cutter and be willing to do so, working on the glass. He does a lot of the little things that help produce with like overall winning. I think where I'm kind of left like kind of remiss is there isn't a necessary outlier or great skill from anything that he's currently doing. Like with some of the prospects that we've talked about, there's usually one or two things that you can bet on that they're going to be really good, and it might overcome some of the flaws. Like with Insenge, I don't think he's a plus athlete. I think maybe
No, I don't think so at
yeah,
all.
yeah, he's more of a long strider than necessarily like a powerful, explosive athlete. And you kind of see the why like some of his best play types are in transition. Um, Defensively, I think right now he doesn't necessarily have the strength to probably guard NBA players, but he does have the requisite length, and he does know how to utilize that. And then the shot obviously is like a work in progress. It isn't at a level where teams are going to be guarding him and he's going to be getting closeouts. He's a particular player where you're probably projecting 2 or 3 years from now that he's going to be guarding the opposing team's best player and ideally can hit really good shots. He can hit open shots. Like Jalen McDaniels would be a home run for
Mm.
him if he can be a guy that isn't necessarily big enough to play the four, but can be utilize his length to guard other wings and like be disruptive that way.
J Mac is a pretty fun, or did you say Jalen or Jaden? Jaden, yeah,
Jaden,
Jaden.
yeah,
Yes,
yeah,
J Mac is a. I never thought of that, but that's, you know what, for a guy who, because like when you go to a Senge, whether it's like Twitter or whether YouTube comments, what people say is Giannis, which feels entire. But you know you've seen it too, but
yeah,
it's entirely too lofty. It's just
yeah,
like overseas kid. It seems like he can't do a bunch of stuff, so he can be whatever you want. Like he could be honest, right? But J Mac is probably a much more modest, but at the same time lofty goal.
yeah,
Especially like what was J Mac 28th pick overall?
yeah,
Senge, if he goes 9, he probably goes between like, if I had to guess, 13 and 18 is probably where Senge goes. But
yeah,
to stick with what he does well, you brought up transition. Transition as a whole, he's extremely strong there because he does have those really long legs. He has big gathers, and he has the length to just finish at the rim. Raptors fans, you'll remember what it was like watching Gary Trent Jr. in transition. It just wasn't much of a sight. Pascal Siakam is one of the best transition players of the past however many years. Scotty Barnes is terrific in transition, albeit for different reasons. But transition is the number one thing. I also think Asenge is quite good as a defender at the nail,
yeah,
and he's also like he does like to cheat for steals and all that kind of stuff. So the off ball stuff, I'm not as big on because he's cheating to get there. But at the nail, as a dig down guy, I thought he was pretty strong, and he provides a lot of length there. He just does not have the strength, full stop, to play against bigs. Uh,
yeah,
maybe someday he will, and that makes defense a lot easier for to project him in. But as far as expecting him to play against bigs or expecting him to fill out and kind of dominate in that role, I'd be surprised probably. And while there is definitely some stuff as far as defensively playing on ball against guards or wings, I think that sometimes he can absorb a drive, stay with and block something, or keep his hands in the play. I think he is largely uh, below average at like everything defensively right now.
Yeah.
At least in the German league. I think he's below average at almost everything. But again, he's one of the youngest players in the draft, if not the youngest. It depends who pulls out, it depends who's in. But that kind of stuff, it's a lot of work. We talked about
Mhm.
Carter Bryant, and Carter has less stats for sure. But I
Yeah.
think Carter is less work to get on the NBA floor in positive minutes than Essengue, just as a point of reference. If you like Essengue better than Carter, that's great. That's just kind of where we're at. Uh, so that kind of stuff, dig down's really good, transition really effective. The rest of it is just like, hopefully this becomes something. I
Yeah.
think on ball defense, you could see how it might get there just because he can eat space. It's about knowing, I guess, tendencies of the players he's guarding, and I guess like contests and stuff like that. But do you want to focus on the shooting? Because we have some numbers for that.
Yeah. Let's focus on the shooting.
Okay, I'm gonna give you some numbers, and then if you feel like putting on the shot doctor cap, I'll swing it over to you. So he's a 26% catch and shoot three shooter. He shot 69% at the rim, 53% on his layups, and he dunks a lot. And he has virtually no volume as a mid range shooter, like none. Hooks out the door, all this kind of stuff just does not provide that. And then also off of the shooting is like, is there a drive, a half court option there? And that really wasn't present in his game. But again, the transition, to give him credit, he shot 80% in transition, just
Yeah.
big one outs. It was a huge part of his game. But the shooting, are you a believer in the jumper?
I'm not, honestly, just because of like how elongated his jump shot is. Like in the NBA, guys take up tons of space and close out really hard. And I think some of the reason why he's really good in transition is that in everything that he does, he utilizes his length and he elongates everything that he does. And you can't get it to the mid range if you don't have like a quick compact jumper. You might not even be able to be able to get off certain threes, and especially in the corner with really hard closeouts. So I think his jump shot is going to need work as well. And I think offensively, I think just as a total, like while he kind of has some sort of feeling like filling up space, you would be approaching it similar to like Oris Chamche, where you're okay with like not getting impact for several years and hoping that you like hit the lottery on this pick.
But that's the thing too, is Ulrich was what, pick 57?
Yeah.
They just bought the pick at the end of the draft and were like, yep, let's get our guy. We liked him. And maybe because there were conversations about competing undrafted free agent contracts or something like that. But yeah, with Asenge, those are the things that really show up. I guess like the passing doesn't stand out to me. The shooting, anybody can become a passable catch and shoot 3-point shooter. Anybody can really do that. But the mix of him being really far behind right now on that skill, and the fact that I really don't like his handle and I don't like
Yeah.
his ability to navigate, being able to like not just run north south, but go zig and zag in between to navigate closeouts. That and he doesn't make progressive reads, is like, man, playing off ball, I really wonder where he provides that value. And I don't really see the on ball stuff coming around in a big way. I
Yeah.
know like he could be anything, honestly, but
Yeah.
on top of that, like offensive rebounding, he wasn't so bad at. But the thing that concerned me about his offensive rebounds is also kind of, it's both a concern and a positive, because so many of his offensive rebounds were after he sealed a small, which is good. Get the
Mhm.
steal, work off ball, go get a rebound. But a lot of them were also off of the corner crash, when it's just him and another guy in between the rim, and it's a long rebound and he gets to it first. I'm glad he's getting to that ball first, and I'm
Yeah.
glad that it's happening often. But I don't know if that's like a translatable skill necessarily,
Mm.
right? And also at the next level, it's going to be like Josh Hart, the bastard, is competing with you for that rebound. You know what I mean? And geez, it's just, I watched the film. I looked at a
It's
lot, looking for something to like, especially since I heard so much about Noah, and just like, is this fun? Is this interesting? And so much of it for me is just below the bar of being interesting in so
yeah.
many different facets of his game. Like, yes, he has long steps for finishes in transition, but he's not an explosive leaper, and there are
Yeah.
concerns in the half court. His frame, that's a huge, like, when we liked Grady a lot, it's like, yes, Grady, of course, has to fill out his frame. We hoped that he would, but also there is a great deal of skill alongside that. His foot
Yeah.
speed, we worried about it, but also we said, like, he has decent size at the position, right? Like, this
Yeah.
kind of stuff, good, glad. In fact, like, Grady's wingspan is only an inch shorter than Essenge's, as crazy as that sounds, or maybe an inch and a half, but like, that's something.
Mhm.
It's just, I I don't know where to put my belief on Esenge. And
Yeah.
of course, could be wrong, but I don't know where to put it.
Yeah. I wouldn't have told you in 2013 Giannis is going to become one of the greatest players of all time.
Yeah, yeah.
He wasn't very good. But like even with Giannis, like upper tier athleticism. And like even when you're making the comparison to like Carter Bryant, who we did a week ago, you although like a lot of the stuff is in flashes and you like him more than I do, but
Mhm.
he has a skill that is like undeniable. He has like a trait that's undeniable. His athleticism and his strength will bode well in the NBA, and that's like one thing you can always bank on, that it's going to translate with like Asenge, like even in like the EuroLeague, when you have disadvantages of both strength and foot speed, it kind of leaves you helpless in the half court, and especially if teams don't necessarily have to guard you, your length around the glass can only be as like impactful as your like explosiveness at the same time. Like Mitchell Robinson isn't abnormally larger than like the other NBA big, but he's a great athlete and he also has like the requisite strength and size to be like a monster on the
Well,
glass.
that's the thing too, is like Mitchell Robinson is a really great, because it took Mitchell Robinson a really long
Yeah.
time to fill out. He's 27 now, but it took him a long time.
Mhm.
And so, yeah, it's just Isenge, there's so much that, like, if he, because sometimes guys who aren't that strong of dribblers, they turn it around.
Yeah.
If like Delano Banton has a decent handle for his size, and it allowed to transport him many places on the court, but he also didn't have a lot of vertical pop, so that limited him as a finisher. Even though he had decent touch, he wasn't a good enough shooter to complement this. He wasn't quite the athlete, and he still
Yep.
had these tools.
Mhm.
It's yeah, but like Esenge, and this is why, it's Joe and Schmo,
Yeah.
but I look at everything, and like not one thing piqued my interest, which is, I hate to say that because he's a young man. I hope he proves me wrong. I hope I'm wrong about
100%.
everything. I hope he's a knockout star, but nothing really piqued my interest with Esenge.
Yeah, we're on the same page. Like it's just hard to project anything that is going to like going to instantly translate into the NBA. Like if I were to guess, it's probably going to be on ball defense because you with guys who are that long, you
Mhm.
can if his like anticipatory skills are good enough and he's able to beat guys to spots, he should be able to net out some positivity like defensively, especially because he has good instincts in the nail and off the ball as well.
Yeah. He's and again, it is important to be a guy who does things without asking for the ball.
Yeah.
And he does that. And plays don't get run for him. He still gets points. He still scores the basketball. He garbage mans around. I guess to his credit as well, I think he has good feet, and he plays the angles well as a roller, but he's not a good screener yet either. So like maybe if he fills out, that becomes something he can do. But yeah, the defense at the nail, I think, is quite good. The jumper could come around. He is a
Mhm.
dynamite in transition, but for me, that's not enough to go off of for me to like him as a prospect. Uh, any other thoughts, or do we go to Rasheer Fleming?
Let's go to Rasheer Fleming.
Okay, I like Rasheer Fleming.
Yeah.
I, I feel this draft feels so shooting guard, power forward. Does it
Yes.
not?
It
Everyone is a shooting guard or power forward.
it's odd because like the Raptors don't necessarily need those positions, but like every prospect has fit
It's
that archetype.
Yeah, blows my mind. Anyway, to one of the best power forwards in my mind in this draft, Rasheer Fleming out of St. Joseph's. He's a junior. He'll be 21 at the start of the NBA season. He is 6'8" in his bare feet, for people who care about that. 232 pounds, a 7'4" 6'5" wingspan, a 9'1" standing reach. This is an absurdity. Like, this really is an absurdity. 7'5",
Yeah,
and you watch him when he runs, his hands hook under his arms because he's worried that they'll hit something almost, right? He has his arms go forever. Okay, the numbers. 14.7 points per game, 8.5 rebounds, 1.3 assists per game, 1.4 steals, 1.5 blocks, 53, 39, 74 shooting splits for 64% true shooting. He shot 43% on his unguarded threes, 37% on his guarded threes. He has no pull-up volume. He has no mid-range volume, and he had a handful of hook shots. Shot 69% at the rim, 59% on his layups. He dunked a fair bit with those long, long arms.
yep.
Trevon Heath, how do you feel about Rasheer Fleming?
I think one thing I've been noticing just this cycle, I think we've been disagreeing a lot, which is really good. We've been looking at things a little differently. I think
I
with Flem,
love I wish you disagreed with me more. You
no,
know, like,
no,
as podcasters, is like,
yeah.
I'll inter is because I'm a bit of an ass, but it's like I'll interject to make a joke or something. I would love that from you. It's like, "You think you're so smart, Samson. You're wrong."
Well, with Fleming, I don't necessarily. I think I'm lower than consensus, and
Yes.
just just to like start, it could be also just be over indexing for like what you see in the playoffs. But I think the overall ask for a 4, it has significantly increased than what we've seen in the last 10 years. And to at 6'9", 6'10", you need to both be able to have like the strength to anchor playing against bigger players and then
Mhm.
also have the skill offensively to do multiple things in order to be okay with giving up size. Like Oklahoma City, tons of great perimeter defenders. They still have to play their double big line just because of the teams that they're playing. They're attacking the glass. Teams have
Mm.
figured out like possession battle really matters, so big guys play. That's kind of my thought. But
Okay,
looking
so
at, go ahead.
go. Oh, well, okay, I'll ask. So, Rasheer, this is a great litmus test because I think I'm opposite. Do you
Mhm.
think he's a defense first or offense first prospect?
Defense first.
For me, I think his offense will be better at the NBA level than his
What?
defense. Yes.
Wow.
You and we disagree.
Wow.
Maybe power forwards are where we disagree most.
Maybe.
You
I
know?
just I just look at the position and look at like guys with similar size profile. They're massive and very special players. There's like guys like Scotty Barnes, who's just does
I
not
mean,
fit
they all played for the Scotty, Pascal, OG,
still.
like, they all
Like
played for the Raptors.
they're high level athletes, high level movers for their position, and then also have the strength to guard and rebound for their position at a really high level. There's like maybe 10 of these guys in the NBA that can actually be starters. There's like Jason Tatum, who also does that. OG Anunoby, another guy who played for the Raptors. Aaron
Mhm.
Gordon. You can't name that many players who can do this. So
Okay.
it's a challenge for me to say that Rasheer Fleming is going to do the same thing.
So I'm going against the stats for something. Just
Okay.
like, I'll make the case then if I think he's an offense first prospect.
Go ahead.
I think he shoots the ball really well. I
Yeah.
think he will at the NBA level. Not as a pull up. And that's but again, like, OG is not a pull up shooter, Scotty's not a pull up shooter, Pascal definitely not from three, is not a pull-up shooter. In the mid-range, Pascal, even before he got drafted, I think he was the number one mid-range
Mhm.
shooter in all of college. Like, it was an under-discussed aspect of his prospect, of him as a prospect. But basically, Rasheer, he's elite finishing out of like every play type per synergy, but a lot of this is as a play finisher. The
Mhm.
thing is, so he shot 37% on his drives and 43% on his twos out of spot ups. So that's attacking closeouts basically. And he was inefficient as a driver on the whole. The thing that really interested me was that, and interests me at at the NBA level, is that he's not going to draw the toughest assignment.
Yep.
It's just not going to happen. But he rebounded so many of his own misses as a driver that I was like, I think there's a Scotty Barnes thing here. You know how Scotty was able to implement his offense at the NBA level much easier than people thought?
Mhm.
Rasheer is a really big guy to deal with if it's an opposing 4 or if it's an opposing 3. I just think that he will have his way physically against a wide array of matchups. And while he's not an impressive dribbler, it's fine enough. While he's not an incredible finisher, it's fine enough. I actually think, given the extra space on the floor in the NBA, his driving will improve relative to college. I think his shooting will stay, and he is one of the best. You just talked about I guess the possession battle. He is one of the best offensive rebounders in
Yeah.
college. He that 7'5" wingspan. He also pursues the ball like a madman.
Mhm.
He really gets to the ball. That kind of stuff for me is like I see a lot of offense fitting in there, and like a bit of Nas Reed is what I see.
Wow. Wow.
I see a bit of Nas Reed when I watch him.
Jelly Fam Nas Reed.
Yep.
The jelly Nas Reed.
I
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay. So hit me back. Hit me back. Let's hear it.
All right. I think when it comes to Fleming, I do agree. He's going to be a guy that can hit spot up shots. There's not much of him doing things off movement, which leads to
Yeah.
concern for me. He's a guy that you could run off of the line and probably be okay with any shot that he takes. Like obviously the court will open up and he might have an easier time like finishing over like opposing bigs or just in the lane. I think his success can be very dependent on the situation that he's in. I think with particularly like with the Raptors who ask for their guys to do a lot of motion, ask for their guys to make really quick decisions. I don't see a lot of that from like Fleming on tape, especially
Yep.
like as like a playmaker coming down the lane. Like a lot of his drives typically him lead to him barreling into the opposing team. He's a big man. He has the size like to also to do so. So I think like when it comes to him, like especially offensively, everything is so predicated on him being a good shooter. And if that doesn't work
Mm.
out, I don't know how he stays
We
on the
keep
floor.
we keep arriving at this.
that's
I'm like, yeah. I
that's
can't. I think it was Merv said he was like, "Why do you?" He's like, "I don't know if it's the carpenter in you, Samson. You always want these projects, man." He's like, "Why can't we get somebody who shoots the basketball with a bit of wiggle?" And I was like, yeah, yeah. If Rasheer doesn't shoot, it's tough.
yeah.
Like it's tough, but I think he'll shoot.
Yeah, that
I
and
hope.
that's and that's what like I think just looking at the draft like in general after like pick 4 or 5 like a lot of it is just like it's pretty flat in terms of talent and you just are more optimistic on certain outlier traits than others and banking on certain things going well like for sure Fleming can rebound at the exact same level that he did in college, he'll be a massive asset. Josh Hart plays probably more minutes than he probably should because he rebounds the hell out of the ball and like wins possessions for the Knicks, even if he hurts them like in terms of like their half court possessions. Where I do like Fleming a lot is defensively.
Wait,
Um,
before you, can I also say
Go ahead.
that, like, not only does Fleming offensive rebound and justify that big man stuff, I think he'll finish at the level of like a front court player. And something I didn't say, he's a very strong screener. Like
Yep.
you can run flat screens, and a flat screen is basically where the big comes up behind somebody. He runs it flat and chooses the side, the angle he's going to give the ball handler at the last second. It requires a lot of craft to not get called on moving screens. His footwork out of it on slips to show himself as a target on the roll, like all that kind of stuff. He's obviously a fairly good pop option because of the shooting. That stuff I think was really quite good, and I expect to translate to the NBA level. Defense.
I think he's one of the best defensive prospects in the draft, honestly. Especially like as a low man. I'm not 100% sure that he necessarily has like the lateral quickness to stay with a lot of guards and wings. I think he's gonna have to actually be a 4. So but as a low man, he has really great instincts, and it's like his athleticism, especially vertically, pops a lot on tape. He's well, I think sometimes kind of inconsistent, like tagging and making like the correct decision. When he does get there, he takes up so much space and takes it up like super quickly. And with that, he's also in transition, starting tons of plays because he can wreak havoc, blow up plays in that sense. So I think him as an off ball player defensively is going to be his role and offer like the most impact. I think where I have some trepidations of like whether that leaps out into like a starter is like with his size, is he going to be able to guard like Isaiah Hartenstein and you
Yeah.
feel okay with that and hold up in that sense? Like very few players can do that and be skillful at the same time. So I think I'm more so just taking the percentages on this prospect.
You're hitting on a lot of things. I don't know if I think he's one of the when you say one of the best prospects, is that like top 10? Is that top 5 roughly? Like
It's
what
like
in your mind,
it's like top 10.
top 10?
Mm.
Yeah. Yeah, top 10 maybe. But I you hit on a couple things that like man, they asked him to do a lot, by the
Mhm.
way. Like y- they asked him to do a lot at St. Joseph's. He guards a lot of guards. And like he'd be out above the break and he'd be like, "What?" And like when he's playing double big, they'll send him out above the break a bunch. And then once he's playing his lone big, he'll play drop and stuff like that, which is good to see him in so many versions of versatility. But watching him like chase guys up court and around screens, it's like, okay, when he's going up court and has to slither around a screen, it's not that bad because he can stab step. But when he's playing on ball and has to climb a screen by going sideways, he's
Mhm.
dead. It's
Yeah.
over. And but also it's like, why the hell are they playing him up there? But then again, it's college. I don't know. You try things out. He was a very talented defender. His arms go forever. I do think his strongest role is, as you say, like that back line,
Yeah.
you know, that being able to do that. But the thing that did worry me a little bit, and I'm front loading the nitpicks, is that like I don't think he uses the strength of his body very well. And that means like a lot of times you'll see him like standing straight up and just kind of like hanging his arms over.
Mhm.
And I that is good to avoid fouls. That as like what you do at the NBA level, if you're not like 7-2, guys, if you give them the target to beat, they will beat it. The
Yeah.
best defenders use their body, keep everything down low, keep like one hand high, and then go meet the ball. He kind of just goes two hands up, and guys will shift and move his body and then shoot. Whether it's like getting a bit of a fade on it, they'll shoot around his contest.
Mhm.
Now, those are my nitpicks. The good thing is he is, to me, extremely effective getting his hands into places. They go forever. Even sometimes when he does just hang his arms up there and doesn't even swat or swipe at anything, his arms get in the way, his hands get in the way. 7'5" wingspan. He clearly can sweep the glass. He, as a drop defender, is pretty good at that back pedal to swat away
Yep.
lobs because he doesn't have to jump as high because his arms don't have to jump. They just have to move. He covers a lot of vertical space. I think he could be for like a pretty unique 5 out offense opportunity on one end and playing him as a small ball 5 on the other. This is why I said Nas Reed is a comparison point. Nas is bigger though, although
Yeah.
not as big of a wingspan. I just think there's utility clearly on defense. He's a playmaker and he has the size and he does like he he's a little bit, I don't want to use the term lazy, but sometimes he's just like clearly not defensively, he's just kind of like, in it. He's not like always an intense defender. He has a lot more
Mhm.
energy for offense, it seems, than defense.
Yeah.
And he still has like 3 stocks a game. So maybe
Yeah.
that's a really good indicator. And maybe at the next level, his defense will be like super charged up because he is an above average mover for like a big man out of college, I think. But
Mhm.
for a 6'9" with shoes guy at the NBA level, I think he'll be pretty median. So it will depend a lot on like what role he gets, where is he used on the floor, I think. It's
Yeah.
interesting though.
That's what and I personally like obviously you're a national journalist,
Oh
but
Jesus. International.
I when I look at every prospect, I look at them through the lens of like how the Raptors play. Would it make sense for the Raptors? And like he's like a trickier fit in like projecting long term because you ideally from
Yeah.
this pick you want like an impactful player and one who probably can either
At
start for your team.
9, you promised me a Hall of Famer.
Have no
Well,
fear.
there's the question: is Rasheer making the Hall of Fame?
I don't think so personally. I, I didn't. I don't get the same feeling when I'm not saying I thought DeMar DeRozan was going to the Hall of Fame, but he was a prospect that had tons of hype coming from USC. Kind of disappointed. I was like, oh wait, they're taking a chance on this guy. I didn't see Tracy McGrady. I was in diapers, but it's the same thing. Okay. I guess coward time.
Okay,
Yeah.
Coward time. This guy is, because of his age, he'll be 22 at the start of the season. He transferred to Duke,
Yeah.
but might never make it. He may never play a game there because he started getting buzz. And I don't know what his deal was with Duke, like whether it's like a fat and like there's a lot of money there. I don't really know, but he started getting a lot of buzz. He is I guess it would be, yeah, he's just a senior
Yeah.
out of Washington State, although he was at East Washington for a couple years. Cedric Coward, uh, 6'5", barefoot, 6'5" and some change, I guess, 213 pounds, 7'2" and some change wingspan for a 6'5" guy, pretty nutty, and he has an 8'10" standing reach. 17.7 points per game, 3.7 assists, 7 rebounds, zero point 0.8 steals, 1.7 blocks, 56, 40, 84 splits for 70% true shooting. And that is across 6 games for Washington State. Now, I will say his true shooting last season, I think, was like 67% on East Washington in the Big Sky Conference. I watched 2 uh East Washington games today, man. I As we said at the top, Josh Codenaire is the only person who uttered Cedric Coward's name in the 416 area code before 2025. You said he was your favorite.
He's
So
my
you
favorite.
go.
For a couple weeks, I've been looking to smile watching some tape since I digged in the Derek
Smile
Green
watch.
stuff. I want some East Washington hoops with a big grin on my face. I think like with Coward, like you immediately see like how he could play on the Raptors. He's a guy that can hit shots from every single spot on the court, whether that's spot up, off movement. He can attack closeouts really well. He can get to his dribble, his two dribble pull up and hit from mid range, which is, as you can see, like within the playoffs, like a much needed skill, especially out of role players. And
Quickly before you go on, 40% catch and shoot three, 46% unguarded. He has like no volume. He was 2 of 5 on pull up
yeah,
three. He was 4 of 6 on pull up two. However, he was 51 of 87 on non-rim twos throughout his whole college career. 51 of 87. That is absurdly good on that mid-range pull, basically. He was unbelievable there.
yeah, and with him, what I think what led me to smiling is he can oftentimes guys attacking closeout usually just have one speed that's going up and downhill. Where you can probably see some of the upside is he decelerates really great to get to his mid-range pull-up. He can utilize his strength. There's a lot of bumps off of his decel to open up space, and
Yep.
he's a big time athlete. I would have liked to probably, it's only 6 games, to see it more like with some of his drives, and that's probably some cause for concern, but you see his athleticism show up when he's attacking closeouts and especially on defenses as well. So like he's a guy with like more, if he had more games under his belt, I think he could have probably been like a top 10 consideration.
He and again, but he's 22, right? When the season starts, he'll be 22. I want to bring up a good example here because you bring up the finishing. So, and this, like, again, this is I'm not big on Jeremiah Fears, but Trey is. So this is a pro
Yep.
Jeremiah podcast. So Jeremiah, 50, almost 51% on layups, right? And we know how talented Jeremiah is at getting into the lane. And when we look at Coward, just for like a frame of reference, his numbers, he shot 68% at the rim in his 6 games at Washington State, but over his 2 years at East Washington, he shot 76% at the rim. And I just want to highlight that the difference in touch between Coward and Fears is not that level. It
Yep.
is the difference in speed of which you attack the rim that Coward has, as Trey addressed, an like uncanny ability to switch speeds and reroute his drives.
Yep.
He is very inventive and creative as a driver, both in how he gets to the midi pull and how he gets to the basket overall. And that also extends to a lot of interesting like mid post actions for him as a guard slash wing.
Mhm.
That kind of stuff I thought was really interesting. As a scorer, I think he's absolutely dynamite. I think he will
Yep.
shoot it 100% at the next level.
Agreed.
The thing that gives me pause, and I watched all of his assists to really
Mhm.
means test this because he's at 3.7 assists per game over the 6 games with
Yep.
Washington State. That's that's not a bad number. That's pretty healthy for a guard
Mm.
in college anyway. Not a lot of creative passes. A lot of
Oh, I agree.
running offense and passing off to the guy in the pin down, that kind of stuff. As a scorer, I think he's so there. I think
Yeah.
it's just 100% going to be there at the NBA level. I think he's inventive. I think he's talented. I think he's physical. I
Mhm.
like that's those are big things. Those are big deals, dude. Uh any pushback or thoughts on the playmaking at all?
I agree for the most part. A lot of like his playmaking is like predicated on like his shooting gravity, and the opposing teams like treated him like the level of shooter that he was. So some of the reads are a lot more simple. Where I think where there's I saw some upside out of the playmaking would be especially out of like some of like the post actions. They would switch they would switch him onto smaller guys and run post actions tons of times and as he was able to read guys coming closer to him off the weak side and make plays, few skip passes like here and there across the board. I guess the thing is that's like in 6 games that's like 3 or 4 plays. So that's
Yeah.
hard to really like say that's a skill for a long period of time. But I think like his physicality and his like shooting gravity, if that holds up in the league, he won't necessarily have to be the most creative passer because the reads will be very simple and like, probably be predetermined for the most part because teams will be running at him.
Yeah. It's I think I know he's just starting to be thought about as like a back end first rounder. By the end of the draft process, it wouldn't surprise me if he's around 15, honestly.
Agreed.
And even and if he does fall and he's available at the back end, I don't know, maybe the Raptors you could consider something funky to get like a pick or something like that. But it is kind of like a guard who's selected at 12, 2 years removed from that selection versus a guard who's selected at like 27. The pick spot can be so meaningless, dude. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? And with Cedric, I I think he can hoop. And like I guess we should address the defense. So defensively, we said his wingspan. He has like the same wingspan ratio as Rajon Rondo did, and we had to hear about that guy his wingspan for so many years. But it's like that frame is an impressive one, especially that he coordinates it so well as a shooter and a
Mhm.
finisher. Sometimes guys with those long arms they don't do so well. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Uh, but like this guy's arms are 3 inches longer than Essenge's. He's like 4 inches shorter. He's crazy, but uh, he's a talented mover. I
Mhm.
don't I don't think he's a super I don't think he's a super talented defender. I don't think he was like super locked in on defense, but
Yeah.
I did I think that he has that unique, like, really strong verticality at the rim that guys like Kyle Lowry had, that guys like Drew Holiday have, that guys like Derek White have, where I think he'll have a real talent for hunting blocks and kind of being like the last man standing on scramble plays.
Mhm.
In transition, I think that will show up defensively for him. And he also like he is a talented defender. He does have a wingspan that goes forever. If he applies himself to the defensive end, even though I don't think that his technique or anything is like super great right now, I think there's reason to believe that he could be like a positive defender, which is pretty meaningful.
Yep. I agree. We're on the same page, especially like the technique stuff. I think it was similar to like the VJ Edgecombe watch where you're just on like a significantly different plane of athlete than the guys that you're going towards, than you're playing against. And like with Coward, you would see him be lazy on some of this I don't like to use the word lazy, but
Yeah, yeah. It's
yeah,
but like I had the same thing happened to me. Instead of lazy, what is the other term?
yeah. It's just like a knowingness that he doesn't necessarily need to take the correct angle to make an impact play. He can gamble more. He's able to not necessarily be as technically sound because he can still come over back line and still blow up the play. But in the
Contest with
NBA,
both hands, by the way.
he
Good
does.
little thing.
And in the NBA, you won't have that opportunity. Even if you're a bigger athlete, there's guys like TJ McConnell who's going to, if you give them like a sliver of space, they're still going to score because they're like that skilled. So technique matters a lot. But like even like off the ball, operating as a low man too, he did that tons in the games that I watch, and his athleticism really pops there.
He
And
played the same role for Washington State
yep,
as I think Dwayne Wade did for Marquette. It feels like it's not a guard
mhm.
necessarily. It's kind of like you're just a basketball player out there, kind of.
Yeah, and he was roaming around the court, making plays and doing things like that. I'm unsure if he, while I do think he's physical, I'm unsure if he's going to be able to guard wings, just because
Yeah.
he's been on the thin side, and while like he has good lateral mobility, I don't necessarily think he's going to be able to like hold up or have the anchor to guard some of the bigger guys. So you're probably looking like a big shooting guard in like the same vein of like Grady Dick in the same sense. But like I don't think they have, like if they were to draft him, I don't think there's necessarily tons of overlap and you couldn't play them together because like Coward shows up on the defensive end.
Yeah. The wing stuff for defense is really interesting because there are some guys because he weighed in at like 6'5", 213. He'll be 23 or sorry 22 when the season starts. There's still time to put weight on. He could be one of those like guards or small wings who kind of rocks around at like 220, 225. Like Drew Holiday is close to that weight. A guy like Derek White is more so like 205, but Derek guards the smaller guys. Drew is the
Mhm.
one who steps up and guards, as just the Celtics because they use a lot of guards guarding up. Um, but like even or Josh Hart, he's a fire hydrant.
Yeah.
Josh Hart has trouble with wings. Josh Hart
Mhm.
also has trouble with guards. Josh Hart is an underrated, like not bad, below average defender because of the tweener aspect of what he does.
Mhm.
And I do not expect Coward to be like an impressive guard defender, and I don't necessarily expect him to be able to do it on wings at the place where you really want him to be able to, because even a guy like Tobias Harris probably gonna have an awesome time, and that's Tobias Harris. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Sorry, Tobias Harris. Clearly, clearly watches pull up Trey.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, I'm not certain about the defense. He has tools, just
Mhm.
not certain how they fit. But he's an NBA player,
I agree.
and if you can guarantee, and that's stamp of approval for Cedric Coward being an NBA player. I think so. I feel the same way about him as I did about like Tristan da Silva. It's like, yeah, Tristan will play.
Yeah.
Tristan will be there. Um, Usually, what happens with you and I is we haven't hit on a star yet. Not yet. This is our third draft of kind of like diving in. But
Mhm.
everyone that we've liked plays and
Yeah.
is like, and like that guy's gonna have a career for himself. But I I don't know. Derek Queen, Carter Bryant. Oh, as a final thought for myself, I have a big. It's like 1,400 words on Carter Bryant. It'll be out Friday. I went back and looked at more of his film. I particularly wanted to watch him guard guys like Cooper Flag, Con Knipple, and VJ Edgecombe. It's there.
Okay.
Yep. Carter, hell yeah, dude. Big fan.
I like it. And you hit it right at the right time. Like he's like, especially like on draft Twitter, like exploding. Like everyone loves him.
I mean, you watch his because if you do highlight scouting, of which this is not the highlight scout podcast, we like to go
Yeah.
deeper. We
Yeah.
may not be right about everything, but we are doing our best to go deeper. We're not just reading NBADraft.net or whatever the hell in podcast form. Uh, Carter, if you are doing the highlight scout, he pops.
Yeah.
Like you're like, holy
A big
hell.
time athlete.
Which was also the case for a guy who was a late riser, Bilal Coulibaly. was a hell of a highlight scout watch, and
Mhm.
he rode the Trevon Heath bus all the way to 7th overall. The Washington Wizards had the cup to the pull-up trade door saying, "Oh, who's he like?" Anything you wanna say before we get out of here?
um, the, we don't have enough time because the Pacers are about to play. But next week, I did promise I was going to give you a
Yes,
rundown of
yes.
Kofi Kingston pretending to be Jamaican for a decade.
I know about this one, like, I've been swirling around this topic before, but never dove into it, so I'm excited.
Okay, next week I will give a rundown and origin of Vince McMahon deciding that Jamaican culture was in.
Hell yeah. Alright, from myself, from Trevon, on our way to go watch the Pacers versus Knicks, do you have a prediction? Who wins game 1?
Knicks by 8. OG Anunoby, 27 points.
Wow. I'll take Knicks in game 1 as well. We'll
Yeah.
see. I gotta write about it in 8 minutes anyway. So thank you everybody for listening. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe. We appreciate you very much for tuning in and supporting the podcast, one of Canada's favorite basketball podcasts, the Pulp Tray Podcast. Keep it in the brain. Tune in with us as we talk about all the draft prospects, all the stuff in Raptors land. And thank you so much for getting into it. Whether you got into this in the morning or at night, have a blessed day and goodbye.